Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the Monday Night MarshStream. We're glad to have you here, especially for this special program night with our Monday Night Marsh. I'm David Harada. I'm Director of Artist Relations here at the Marsh and your host for the evening. Just a brief note about what we've got coming up. We've got programming on the MarshStream almost every night of the week. This is our Works in Progress series every Monday night. Tuesday night, this week, we've got Joshua Raoul Brody doing his Beatles sing-along this week, which should be a lot of fun. And then Wednesday, we've got, for our Solo Arts Heal series, we've got mezzo-soprano Hai Ting Chin doing excerpts from her piece Science Fair, an opera with experiments. I've seen excerpts of the piece, and it's pretty amazing. So that's on Solo Arts Heal Wednesday at 7:30, and she'll be in conversation with host Gail Schickley as well. Thursday at 7:30 is Stephanie's MarshStream, the interview show run by our artistic director and founder, Stephanie Wiseman. She'll be talking to Grant Faulkner, the executive director of National Novel Writing Month. November is National Novel Writing Month. I don't know if you knew that or if you've tried it, but it's a great exercise in creativity, and I highly recommend it. So he'll be talking Grant Faulkner on Stephanie's MarshStream on Thursday. Fridays, we have CJ's Fitness Sing at noon. It's a combination singing lesson and fitness class, and it's amazing. Candace Johnson, who leads it, she's a voice professor at UC Berkeley, and she's a terrific, just really charismatic performer and class leader. So that's Fridays at noon. Friday night, the return of Bingo with Josh Kornbluth at 7:30. It's sort of part improv performance art on Josh's part and part bingo game, and it's always a lot of fun. This weekend on our solo performance spotlight, we're doing a replay of Merle Ian Scholes Kessler's show, The Important Announcer. That's Saturday at 7:30. All this is on our website. All our programming is for free, but if you can manage to make a donation through our tip jar, there's a link in the chat. It's also on our homepage on our website. So let us move on, because we've got some great performances by some solo performers tonight and from the Formerly Incarcerated Persons Project. But I'm going to turn you over to one of the leaders of the project, Director Mark Kenward. So Mark, say hello to everybody.
Hello, everybody, and thanks a lot, David. Yes, welcome to another evening with the Formerly Incarcerated People's Performance Project. This is a project that I'm directing along with co-directed by two of my good friends and colleagues, Wayne Harris and Rebecca Fisher. We have been collaborating since January with 6 formerly incarcerated people telling their stories, helping them to develop and craft their stories, as well as also working with 2 mothers of children who have been incarcerated, telling their stories about the impacts of incarceration on families. So, we all started rehearsing back in January in person at the Marsh Berkeley. We did that through February, and then along came the pandemic. We were able to pivot pretty quickly and start rehearsing on Zoom, and we've been able to perform through the MarshStream channel and continue to move the project forward with the goal of having in-person performances, hopefully mid-2021. Seems like a good possibility at this point with the good news about the vaccines, so yay. This is a project I'm really, really passionate about. Just our rehearsals, whether they were the in-person ones or on Zoom, they've just been some of the most powerful events of my life. It just really mind and heart opening. I just feel so, these are stories that need to be heard as our nation thinks about how to move forward with criminal justice reform. I think such a huge part of that is hearing stories and just humanizing all the different aspects of incarceration and the justice system and all of that. So thank you so much for being here. So we have 2 performers tonight. We're going to have a 15-minute performance by Pearl Louise, followed by a 30-minute performance by Freddy Lee Johnson. And then we'll have time for question and answer after that. So, You can leave a question in the chat area, and that'll be part of the Q&A. All right, so now it is my pleasure to introduce Pearl Louise. So Pearl, when we put out a call for submission for formerly incarcerated people to tell their stories, Pearl reached out. She herself had not been incarcerated, but as a mother of an incarcerated child, she said, hey, here's a perspective that needs to be heard. And I'm so glad that she reached out to us, because she was absolutely right. And she's just been such a wonderful part of the ensemble, so supportive of others. Her perspective is powerful. We need to hear it. Will you please welcome Pearl Louise?
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out tonight on Monday. This is a true story. One day I got a call from my son needing help. And I'm being a mother, I'm like, sure, whatever I can do to help. Is everything okay, son? He started talking, and I started talking. And I knew everything wasn't okay. As a matter of fact, it was really serious. As we were talking at the final, I was telling, okay, son, all right, let me see what I can do. Let me see what I can do. Why don't you give me a call in a couple of days? I don't have nothing I can do now, but give me a couple of days. And we hung up the phone, and my heart stopped for a moment out of fear, because I didn't know how to handle this with my son. And for a brief moment, in the quietness, I asked myself, who's going to help me help my son? You see, I got a phone call from my son who was in prison. He was doing 10 years. You know, the DA wanted to give my son 35 years. I was like, 35 years? Are you serious? For these charges? I just couldn't handle it. But after a few months, the DA offered my son 10 years, a 10-year sentence. That white DA was like a white Santa Claus, y'all. He had that 10-year sentence all wrapped up in a gift with a bow on top and a card slid underneath that said, take these 10 years, niggas. And we took it. My son was like, don't worry, Mom. I can do this time. I just have to jail hard, that's all. And I told my son, you're right. You are gonna have to jail hard this time. So let's go back. Let's go back a few years when I got that first phone call. Hello. This is an inmate at a California State Correctional Institution. This phone call and your number will be recorded. If you'd like to accept the call, just push 0. If not, just hang up. So I pushed 0. And when I heard my son on the other end of the line and he started talking, I closed my eyes. And I felt like Florida Evans in Good Times when James died. It was like, damn, damn, damn. Not you, son. Not you. I'm gonna have to go through this with you. Because I've been through this before. I've been through this with his father, my husband, my brother, my cousins. I was the advocate to help them as they go through prison life. I'm talking about Santa Rita, Folsom, High Desert Prison, Vacaville, CMC, Corcoran. That was bad enough and stressful. But when it's your son or your daughter, it's worse. I've always blamed myself. Really, I have. I used to say, did I do enough, Pearl? Could it be something that you did to keep him out of that. And I beat myself up. But you know, I want to share with you the greatest fear for a Black mother with a Black son is to deal with the police or prison. You know, they say we raise our daughters and we spoil our sons, but it's not spoiling, it's protecting. You know, as Black mothers, we sit there, we stand over the crib, and we see our sons, and we see a target on their back. We can't help feeling that from centuries of police brutality. So what we do is that we chastise our sons. We spoil them. Then we chastise them. Sometimes spiritually and physically, we boxing them, trying to tell them to act right. We act like the police, so our sons don't have to deal with the police. Ironic, isn't it? Sons need good fathers. I want to ask you this. Can a Black mother raise a Black son to be a Black man? Most people say no, and I tend to agree with them. One night, I came home from work, and boy, there was chaos in my house. Both my younger children were fighting, just fighting, and my son started crying, holding a phone. I watched over and I grabbed the phone out of his hand and I said, hello, hello? The person hung up. My son was like, Mom, the man said that we were $50 short. We got to give him his $50. I looked down, $50? $50? Oh my. You see, that was a phone call from an inmate in a correctional facility doing a deal with my son, and it was $50. You see, welcome to prison commerce, when everything and anyone and anything is for sale. You want it? I can get it for a price. I told my kids it was going to be all right, but I lied. The next 2 days, my son called me about the $50. He was like, Mom, you think you can get that $50? You know, I know it's a lot. $50. I didn't even have 50 cents. I mean, all the money I had went with that transaction. How did I mess it up? You see, it's not about the $50. It's about respect in the prison. You do what you're supposed to do. And then one day, they tried to kill my son in the cafeteria. Over $50. My son told me on the phone, oh, Mom, don't worry about it. Man, it was bing, bing. Man, I like this motherfucking place up. Man, my crew, we handled that situation. Trust and believe, Ma, it's all right. And I was listening. What? They hit you? They stabbed? Well, what's going on? And he tried to calm me down. I said to myself, son, You made it this time, but what about the next? I think my son read my mind. He said, don't worry, Ma, everything's okay. Everything's okay, but you think you come up with that $50, get this clown off my back. I said, son, I will try my best. Now, my son once told me, phone me in prison. He was happy. He said, Mom, guess what? I gave some soups to this guy and he put a tattoo in my back, Mom. Big old tattoo, right on my spine. Mom, has your name on it. Right across my back, Mom. Because you're my backbone, Mom. Every time I called on the phone, every time I needed something, you was there, Mom. You my backbone. And now I have to find $50 to save my son. So I'm embarked on a Sunday, going to class, and I'm looking out the window quietly, and emotionally, it was like a thunderstorm raining over my head. Like you see in a cartoon, and I was so quiet about it. I walked all the way to class with the storm over my head. I'd like to share something with you. As Black women, in order to survive in this country, we have to protect ourselves emotionally. We get our heads in this tortoise shell and we put our arms up underneath. We put our legs up in there, just like the turtle. And we barrel through life in America. You better not get angry. You better not cry. Just stick your head in there and survive. So when I got to class, I went up to the front of the class and I started to talk. But then I froze. I emotionally froze. I felt like I couldn't breathe at this moment. And in front of my class, I began to tell them about my life at that moment and what it's like to be a mother of an incarcerated child and how someone was going to murder my son for $50. But I still came to class because life goes on. And you know what my classmate did? They gave me a wonderful gift. They listened to every word I said. And that was a wonderful gift because I'm going to tell you, not too many white people really listen to someone that's Black. I've seen this all my life. So I thanked everybody and I went to the bathroom. And I went into a stall and I sat on the toilet. Whoop. Mothers do their best thinking when they're sitting on the toilet, believe it or not. So I sat on the toilet and I got my emotions together. Because after class, I have to deal with my son. And he's waiting for me to get out of class. So I went to class and I sat in the chair next to my classmate. And next was my purse on the floor. I took my writing pad and I stuck it in the purse next to my water bottle. And when I looked, there was 2 20s and a 10. I'm like, what? My head was like the turtles just swirling around, looking around. Who put this $50 in here? I looked and I looked. And then I looked at my friend, or I should say my classmate, and she was looking straight ahead. I looked at her and I knew she put that money in there. She put that 2 20s in that 10, and that spoke volumes. She was telling to me, hey, Pearl, I'm giving you this money because I don't want your son to be murdered. I kept staring at her, and she finally turned around and she looked at me and smiled. And I said, thank you. And I hugged her. You know what? At that moment, I realized she was my guardian angel. She was the one I asked at the beginning, who's going to help me help my son? Excuse me. Okay. I wouldn't take my eyes off her, like I said. You know what? I've dealt with this a lot in my life. I noticed a lot of white people would step up and help me through life. And people of all colors. And when I see like Black Lives Matter, and I see so many white people alongside Black people, and they're telling me as I watch the TV, Pearl, we care. We want to help. And I always smile about that. And they tell me, I see you. What can I do? So I wanted to say, after class, I went home, no more storm over me. And I called my son. I'm sorry, I didn't call him. He called me. And I told him I have the $50 to give to him. But I also told him who gave it to me. And he was like, what? Really, Ma? A white lady? She gave up that money? Mom, tell that white lady, thanks. Good looking out. And I like to say thank you. Oosh. So sorry.
All right. All right, great job, Pearl. Just beautiful, beautiful. Well, we have one more performer tonight. And before I introduce him, I want to talk about how I got to know, actually the performer I'm about to introduce is kind of how this whole project got started, Freddie Lee Johnson. And I met Fred and got to know his story through another project. Our mutual friend, Charlie Hinton, was working on a show called Solitary Man, about his visits to Pelican Bay State Prison, visiting with men who are in solitary confinement. And so Charlie had a beautiful, very powerful piece, and he invited Fred to join the piece as both a musician and an actor. So I got to know Fred and got to know his story. I started working with him one-on-one. So a huge shout out to Charlie Hinton for getting this project in some ways going. And Fred is, he's amazing. He's really amazing. He's been involved in the harm reduction movement for years. He's been a program director in several cities. Now he's spending his time in the theater arts as well as in music. He's a very wise man, and I'm glad to know him. So you please welcome Freddy Lee Johnson.
I started playing the trumpet when I was 15 years old. 1965, I was hitchhiking around the country. On a journey to nowhere, just wanted to be free. Didn't want anybody to tell me what to do. I ended up in Denver, Colorado. Now I'm walking downtown, just tripping around, exploring the city like I usually do. And I saw a trumpet in a pawn shop window. I knew when I laid my eyes upon it that I had to have that trumpet, that it would be a part of my life. I never thought about playing the trumpet or any other instrument for that matter before. I bought it. Now I practiced wherever I could. You know, I'm in Denver, it's cold, I'm new to the city, homeless, even though we didn't call it that at the time. Being free would be more appropriate. I'm practicing in hallways, cold parks, just having fun. I end up studying. My first teacher was Denver's great trumpet player, educator, Julius Little Red Ellaby. Miracle. I remember my first lesson with Julius. He's a short guy, powerful guy, short guy, always had a cigar. Now, if I remember correctly, I never saw him light that cigar. He always had that cigar with him. And he dressed like he was from New York, like me. You know, he had on his hat broken down ace deuce tray, you know, like he was from Bedford-Stuyvesant or Brownsville, Brooklyn. You know, gator shoes, Italian knit, you get the picture. That was Julius, cool dude. My first lesson with him, he told me to play a note, just play one note. It sounded something like this. I thought it was great. He shook his head and told me, he says, okay, let's get started. The first lesson, weird. Let me tell you, we didn't pick up the horn for another hour. He had me doing things like lip buzzing, lip fluttering. And I'm asking, what is this for? He says, it warms up your lips. Blood goes to your lips. I thought it was the weirdest thing, but I did it anyway because this guy could play. It was weird though. Facial exercises, looking weird. I said, man, this does not look cool. I mean, Miles Davis, Freddie Hubbard, Lee Morgan, Julius Ellaby, those guys look cool when they played. That's the way I want it to look. But the most challenging of all was the dog pants. Okay, it was finally over. Oh man, I was so happy. It was finally over. He instructs me to pick the horn up. Freddy, blow from your diaphragm, not from your chest. Put the horn to my chops, my lips. And he got inches, that close to me. And he was looking at my armature. Left side, right side, underneath, top. He says, now play. I had to stop. It startled me. I couldn't believe it was me. He instructed me to keep playing, which I did. Just that one note. In an hour, if I could play like that, improve like that in an hour, if he's crazy or not, I'm down with it. I bought into it. It was great. And I studied with this brother for about 2.5 years. You know, man, I tried, he was like a big brother to me. I tried to emulate everything he did, walk like him, talk like him, tried to play like him, but that never happened. Things were great. Things were good. And then things went south. We both had heroin habits. It's not too much, wasn't too much music anymore. Now, there were a lot of stories, folklore about Charlie Parker and Miles Davis and a lot of other people. You know, we would sit around and my activity was around my drug use. And it was, we'd sit around and get high. It wasn't a dingy house. It was a nice house and clean and everything, but that's all I did. And it was killing. And we'd have things that I had stole around the house. It just wasn't what I signed up for. But I wasn't ready to take responsibility for that. And on top of that, one day Julius tells me, look, I'm going to California, San Francisco. My immediate response, well, can I go with you? Yes. I went, 2 of his other students went as well. And our old ladies, our partners. So it was 8 of us leaving Denver in the middle of winter, going to San Francisco, over the Rocky Mountains, in a broken down van with 4 tires, 4 ball tires, and a radio and a heater that was very temperamental. It worked when it wanted to work. It was probably the most dangerous trip that I've ever taken, but one of the most memorable and meaningful journeys. Julius taught all the way. It was like old times. It was like a workshop on wheels. And not only the music, we got to know one another. By the time we got to San Francisco, we were family. And I remember coming into San Francisco, the first time I saw the Bay Bridge in person, not on TV or the radio or the movies. And I saw it, and I knew then that I wasn't on a journey to nowhere anymore. I had arrived. This is where I was supposed to be, and that I'd be there for a while, that Bay Area. As we went across the bridge, the closer I got, the more intense the feeling was, the feeling of happiness, joy, rapture. It was feeling good. Now I didn't think that some of that time would be spent in San Quentin. However, it was still the Bay. I was looking at the houses. It wasn't like back east. Colorful houses. They were on a hill. These hills, but they were colorful. When we got into the city, people smiled and laughed and spoke to me. I loved it. But some of us were dope sick. Some of us still had heroin habits, and we had to take care of that. Julius, he knew where to go. He lived there before. After that, we got an apartment. I had the money. This was my family. I was hustling pretty good, and I was a booster, the shoplifter, and I was pretty good, with all respect for modesty. But when I was in Denver, I ran across a crew of white dudes who were very good at what they did. And the shot caller, let's call him Joe. We knew each other. He said, Short Jab, my street name. He says, you know, with that little crippled arm of yours, you can make money, you know? Now, he wasn't disrespecting me. That's the way we spoke back then. So talk to me. Talk to me, Joe. He says, man, look, when your mother, your father, when you're a kid, you look at the crippled man, the lady, person in the wheelchair, what do they tell you? Stop looking, stop staring. Say, people remember that. Okay. He said, this is what you do. He said, trust me. He said, let's exaggerate that arm. Okay? Make it look worse than it is. It wasn't worse to me, that's all I knew. But anyway, I said, okay, I'm gonna make some money, let's go. He says, I want you to limp a little bit. And he says, no, just a little bit, Short Jab. And I did. He says, walk towards me and look at me. It's a little pitiful look, man, just a little bit, not too much. He said, that's it. That's your persona, man. That's who you are when you're working. And another thing, he says, we just use suit jackets or sports coats. We only shop for crystal. No electronics, no clothes, no LPs. I didn't know what the hell crystal was, and he knew it. He says, I'll tell you that, but right now you got to get the technique down. And I practiced. And when Joe was ready, he knew I was ready, he gave me the okay. Now I remember my first hit, got the famous Lalique Swans. Two of them. I got greedy. Instead of taking one with the suit jacket, putting it under the suit jacket and walking, that was the technique. I took two. And I was walking about 20, 30, 25 yards from the door, and one of them started to slip. I'm saying, oh man, here it is. First time I'm gonna get busted. Just like Joe said, security guard, I knew he was security. He was by the door and he would look at me and look away. And we did that dance all the way to the door until he was just looking at me in my eye when I got to the door. And he says, what's happening, brother? And as a pitiful voice as I could, I said, oh, nothing much, have a good day. And he opened the door. And I left. We got the apartment, 54 Germania Street. That's in the Haight Fillmore corridor, a little alley street. 4 trumpet players, every room was turned into a bedroom. We played all day, all night, and the neighbors did not complain. It was great. once again, things started going downhill because my priority was my drug use. But I was able to have one more lesson with Julius. One more lesson, just me and him. We went to Ocean Beach, San Francisco. It was cold, it was windy, but it was just me and Julius. And I played one note over and over for 2 hours. This lesson meant so much to me. I was standing on the edge of the beach. He would instruct me, he says, Freddy, play that long tone, that one sustained note. He said, I want you to open your eyes and look at it, going out to sea. That's you. That is you. Put your whole life into this little hole right here. And I did. Over and over again. Freddy, take care of the long tone. The long tone will take care of you. It's in the universe, man. It's out there forever. Play it pretty. Back at the house, things were different. I brought some darkness into our community. I wasn't boosting, I wasn't shoplifting as much. I was starting to sell drugs. And with that came guns. And those guys, they weren't used to that. They were not used to that. They supported their habit by their gigs, their jobs, and then selling the instrument every now and then. That was on me. And I overheard Julius one day having a conversation with vibraphonist Bobby Hutchison. He said, you know, Freddy is stuck. He's just not growing. Me, at that particular time, my 18-year-old mind, I'm thinking, why is he talking about me behind my back? Not that he was reaching out to a colleague, maybe to get some advice on how to help me. So I grabbed my horn and I left. I got on the methadone program, got an apartment, and met a lady. Let's call her Alice. We were going to get married. We really liked each other. Call it love, but we wanted to be with one another all the time. We were planning a life together. But there would be no marriage. One evening, a colleague called, and he wanted to purchase some product. But Alice, me and Alice, he said this was an activity that I wasn't going to indulge in anymore. I wasn't selling drugs anymore. We had a future together. So I explained this to this brother. And he told me, I don't care. He said, I know you have this. This is what I want. We went back and forth, an argument quickly escalated until he said, you know, man, you're disrespecting me and I'll be over there. I'm on my way to settle this. I'm saying, oh man, here we go. Doesn't matter that I was 18 years old trying to change my life. That he hunted me down? He drew his weapon first? He ended up dead. I got arrested. I called my mother, which I hadn't spoken to maybe 4 or 5 times in the last 5 years. And I explained my situation. Right away, she says, I'll be out there in a couple of days. In the meantime, shut your big mouth. You know you like to talk. You don't have any friends. Be quiet. Yes, Mom. And I'm thinking, well, what a time, what a time to grow up now. I mean, they didn't leave me. I left them. I'm thinking I could have stayed in New York and worked it out like other family members and other friends of mine. Went to one of the schools, one of the homes, Graham School, Children's Village, Lincoln Watts, and did counseling and all that stuff. Yeah, I missed them then. Anyway, off to prison. I got a good lawyer, Melvin Belli, a very prominent lawyer at that particular time. And off to prison. First stop, Vacaville, California. First prison I went to for evaluation, diagnostic center. I'm saying to myself, this is not too bad as far as prisons go. From what I heard, this ain't too bad. A few weeks later, I was singing a different song when I found out that I was going to San Quentin. At the time, San Quentin was one of the most notorious prisons in the United States. But I'm thinking to myself, I'm not a criminal. Why are they sending me there? I was protecting myself. I stole just to survive. That was my thinking at the time. On San Quentin anyway. Now, instant fear. Not gonna lie to you. San Quentin, the fear is there. Life is about challenging fears, I'm telling myself. But I couldn't show it to anybody. On the bus ride from Vacaville to San Quentin, I could feel it from other people as well. Nobody showed it, but it was so thick you could cut it with a knife. And when I first saw San Quentin, they had flowers and other shrubbery that they planted. I'm saying, what is all of this about? Why? Who do they think they're fooling? Because those gun towers canceled all that shit out. You're in prison, man. And from that point on, we were under the gun. We got off of the bus. The gun was on us. Getting processed, showering even. Walking across the yard, the mess hall, even when we slept. They had a block. First block I went to, they had cells on two sides, the oblong block with catwalks around it, where the COs, the correction officers, used to patrol. And they'd have their rifles. They could look in your cell and shoot you at that particular time. Had to get used to that. I remember the first time going to the big yard, the lower yard. Thinking, I'm not from California. I don't have any homies. Where do I fit in? Most important, where do I not fit in? Going downstairs to the big yard, I see something. I see a track. I went to the track and I started running. For the few hours we were out, I just ran. I didn't stop. And I'm checking things out. Whites over here, blacks here, Chicanos there. You could see who some of the shot callers were, who had some juice on the yard. I made sure that I didn't go to the iron pile. Didn't lift any weights. I didn't play any tabletops. No games, no cards, no checkers, no chess. Not even any basketball, which I love. Not right away. It's just watching. I did see one person that I knew finally. Old man Walter. He was an old con. Now I say that as a term of endearment. back then, that was a respect. There's a difference between a convict and an inmate. Now, Walter, he took time with the younger brothers in the street. He gave us a lot of knowledge, took time with us. Yeah, he gave us some nuggets. I was so excited. I went to greet him. Got a very chilly reception, put it to you that way. I was puzzled until he said, "Look, Short Jab, I heard what happened. You know you did not have to handle your business like that. One brother's dead, you're in here. So that's two brothers they don't have to worry about, huh?" All I could do was look at him. When I looked at Walter, I could see the pain in his eye. This big, hard, old timer. I could see it. I saw the anger, the disgust. I saw the pain. I'll never forget that. Never forget that, man. This guy cared. He just looked at me and turned and walked away. One of my favorite pastimes was giving the state back some of this time, this 15 years that I had. I understand that 15 years is not a lot of time, but it was kicking my ass. I couldn't tell people that. That would be a bad look. Because there are people doing life, double life, 40, 50, 30 years, and any of the combination of anything that I just mentioned. But I found a way to cope. I read in the National Geographic, I saw an article on sea otters, sea rodents, that they would lay on their back, the shellfish that they hustle for, and they would lay on their back, put the shellfish on their back, and take a utensil, in this case a rock, and then bust it open and eat and float around the seashore. I thought that was the coolest thing, to reward yourself for the fruits of your labor and just relax. I said, I'm going to do that. I'm going to do that. Back at the cell block, I was in East Block. They have cells on both sides of the block. One is the yard side, or you could see through the broken windows. We used to break the windows. You could see more prison, the yard. I was on the other side this particular time. Through the broken windows, I could see the bay. They call that the bay side. A lot of us refer to it as the Riviera. Now, if I position myself just right in the cell, in my bunk, laying down, I could look through the bars and the broken glass and see the bay. I could see, occasionally I'd see a boat, some lights. Wasn't bad. So I made a tumbler of Carnation instant milk, laying on my bunk, and I had some vanilla wafers on my chest. And not Nilla wafers as they called today, but that's another story. Vanilla wafers. And I would dip them in the milk and I'd eat them. I'd be in sea otter mode. I became that sea otter, and I'd spend hours and hours and hours like that, floating around the seashore. That was my way. Let you in on something too. It's about 21, 22, that particular time. And I could lay on my back and eat, and I didn't even get any gas or anything. But that's another story. I thought I'd let you in on that. One during one of these sessions, I heard this sound. I knew what it was, but I did not want to hear it. I knew exactly what it was. That damn long tone. You see, I hadn't played music in a few years. I felt like a piece of shit. You know, I disappointed other people, and more than anything, I disappointed myself. Yeah. I didn't even listen to the radio. I didn't want to hear music. And I was able to squash that noise, to suppress it. Reached out my bunk, there was a San Quentin newspaper. I opened it up. Damn. We were holding open auditions for the San Quentin stage band. Oh my God, I can't get away. It's like, and then something happened. It was like some force, something greater than me. It just seemed like it grabbed me in my chest and pulled me out of the bunk. Milk went everywhere. Vanilla wafers went everywhere. I grabbed a piece of paper and a pen and I wrote Alice. I wrote my lady. I said, "Dear Alice, please send me my horn as soon as possible. Love you, Fred." When the horn came, I played my long tones, few scales, but the long tone, the long tone, the long tone. And it was time, when it was time, yeah, for the audition. It was in the evening. They opened my cell. I cautiously walked out because I'm the only one on the tier. I think that was the first time, if I remember correctly, that happened. And I'm looking, I'm seeing, is this a setup? Did they pop anybody else's cell? What is this? So I cautiously walked down the stairs to the rotunda. The CEO checks my docket, my pass. Says, "All right, Johnson." He pops the gate. He says, "All right, Johnson, let's move it." When I stepped outside, I felt like I was being paroled because it was dark. I was walking under the stars. Now I could see the stars from the broken windows in my cell, in the bars. However, but walking, it dawned on me, I can't remember last time I walked under the stars. And I started hearing music. I had to go to the mess hall for the audition, which was, 30 yards, 35 yards. And I started hearing music. I heard a guitar, a trombone player, and a drummer. And they were playing some good music. I heard it. I was drinking it all in. Yeah, closer I got, the better it sounded. And when I got to the mess hall, which is usually hundreds of people eating, there were about 35 people in there. And it was the first time that I saw different races voluntarily mixing together without any beefs, making music. I'm supposed to report to a guy named Jerry Garcia. I'm standing looking around. This guy walks up to me and introduces himself, Jerry Garcia. But he has on blues, just like me. I was expecting someone from the outside. Big Mexican guy. I like his demeanor, man, very respectful. Jerry from LA, I found out. I really liked the guy instantly. Put it to you this way. I had to audition just for Jerry. Everything he asked me to play, I didn't do very well. Not at all. Trust me, he put it on me, man. He asked me to play some stuff I never played. I could not do it. Technically, I could not do it. Harmonically, I just could not do it. He leaned back. He says, you know, I'm a trumpet player. The trumpet player vibe was happening now. I perked up a little bit. Then he said, play me a long tone. I was ready for that. That I could do. And I put everything and my whole life went into this long tone. Everything went into this long tone. I don't know how long I played it. Jerry looked at me, dead in the eye, with a slight nod. I mean, a slight nod. I made it. Success even in prison, man. If I didn't know better, I'll say that again. If I didn't know better, I would think that that was the same long tone that I played on the beach with my teacher, Julius. After all, he did say that that is out there forever in the universe. I don't know, but I do know this, is that I'm still riding that long tone. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you, Mark.
Okay.
So, thank you all. Thank you, Mark and Freddie and Pearl. I'm gonna ask the three of you to all unmute, and I'm gonna see. I'm not sure what my limits are on how many people I can add into the spotlight here. I think I can get all three of you in there. Yep. What do you know? All right. All right. Well, thank you all for sharing those pieces. Thank you, Mark, for leading the project and for bringing this work, helping bring this work to light. So anyone in our Zoom audience, if you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the chat. Likewise, anyone watching on YouTube Live, also I'll be keeping an eye on that as well. So I wanted to ask. I'm going to direct this at Pearl and Fred, but Mark, feel free to chime in. Is that you are functioning as a group, and for you, Pearl and Fred, this is I mean, you've been at this for a while, but creating solo theater was a new thing for you when you started up with this. Mark, of course, has been doing it well for a long time. But how do and I've seen both your pieces a few times. But how is it for you to work together as a group? What do you take from each other? What do you offer each other? How do you inspire each other and hold each other up? Could you describe a little bit of that?
If you like to
Pearl,
go.
go.
Oh, okay.
Go on,
Okay. I feel this was such a wonderful learning experience for me and a family in regards to people who have gone through this system. And every prisoner has a mother and father. And so you can't take the family out of the system when you put them in, in prison. So dealing with Fred and Syrian, No, Tony and so many others, we connected so easily because we knew what it's like to be, to deal with that. Them being there and having family outside and they're inside. So um, I just felt really a camaraderie with all the actors, everyone that's performed, and so supportive. They were very, very supportive and still are. And Rebecca and Wayne and Mark can tell you that sometimes we start talking and we start nodding our heads. So sometimes when we're trying to rehearse, we're really talking about the good old days and what happened, and there's a lot of head nods. And we said San Quentin, no, Vacaville, High Desert Prison. I know how it was, um, because my husband was in San Quentin. So he would tell me stories about that. And when Fred talked about San Quentin, I knew what he was talking about because I used to visit in San Quentin myself as a family member. Yeah. So it's like a family to me. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, Fred, any thoughts on that? Your own point of view on the group and
Yeah.
working
If I could
together?
if I could just echo some of the things that Pearl was saying. It's been a long time. I'm 70 years old. It's a long time since I was in San Quentin or prison, period. So I was in other prisons. But the camaraderie, I think, is to me is man, it means so much to me. It means so much to me. Even though when I came home the last time, this was in Maryland, in the DC area, I was working with formerly incarcerated and incarcerated population. But I got away from that when I started playing music again. And this has really, people understand, and especially, I'm going to tell you what is especially Pearl's piece, and there was another sister, I haven't seen her lately, the families. It means so much because I used to call my mother from San Quentin, and prisons are different, politics are different in New York State and California. And I used to tell her, I said, man, this is crazy. She was saying, just be a good young man and you'll get out. Doesn't work that way. So when Pearl was tell us a story, it moves me. And I just wish my mother was here to hear that, because it's, and meeting with the other people and seeing, it's an inspiration to me, seeing what they're doing, people who did a lot more time than I did, and how their lives, what they're doing with their lives, it just amazes me, it inspires me. So, and what was the other part of the question?
I was, I had just been curious about how you all bounce off each other, inspire each other, support each other, and I think you've gotten that. Now, relating to what you just said, and a question that came up while I was listening to your piece, Fred, are you still playing music as part of an ensemble at all? Do you still get to do that at all?
Yeah, I'm still playing.
Awesome.
I'm still playing. That's my passion, and I have to apologize to people in the beginning. I'm in an apartment and I can't blow the way I want to, so I couldn't give you all that I could give you, but I did the best that I could. But yeah, I'm playing. I play every day, and I still play with people.
Yeah.
I'd like to give Mark a chance to speak on sort of the ensemble nature and the way the group functions, if you have anything to add.
Absolutely. Well, I think that Fred and Pearl spoke beautifully to it, but there's the community that we have formed, and it includes Rebecca and Wayne and myself. And what we have to offer is the craft and soul of performance, you know, how to develop the piece and make it better and all that.
Yeah.
Boy, have we been getting an education, you know, and the education we need to get, you know, because these are experiences that are outside of our experiences. And it has, I mean, it's absolutely blown my mind. And you know, and I was blessed to get into this because I was working with Fred and Charlie Hinton's piece, as well as with another performer, formerly incarcerated person. And so that's how the project kind of got going. So I knew that there was something there, not just for everybody, but for myself, you know, to learn. And you know, it's again, it's through our stories that we learn so much.
Yeah.
We connect and we humanize and we connect. And so, yeah, I mean, we're the ones getting the education.
Yeah, and I think we're all here for that, and I think that's wonderful that we can do that. Now you for Fred and Pearl, I'm curious. Well, so Pearl, you know, I keep an eye on most of the electronic performance stuff coming out of the Marsh.
Yeah.
I have a direct hand in a lot of it, and a lot of the editing and monitoring of the YouTube channel. So you are in the audience an awful lot.
Oh yes,
Thank you for that.
Love it. Thank you.
And aside from knowing you're there, I kind of get this nice feeling of, you know, it's like, oh, and so she's immersing herself in the craft. And Fred, you've had that experience with Charlie. And so of course you're working with the group now, so there is the solo performance form that you're working on, but I'm curious what other artistic inspirations you have. I mean, you sort of mentioned them in passing. Fred, obviously, you know, whether it's Miles Davis or Freddie Hubbard, I see that Art Kane portrait there behind you. So there's music, there's jazz. Pearl, you mentioned you referred to Good Times in your piece. And so, you know, artists take inspiration from all kinds of sources, pop culture and then any specific things, so-called more highbrow things. What sort of inspirations do you two draw from?
Well, for me, a lot of it is music, but so many things. Let me start here real quick. People used to ask me, and I tell my story, they said, what is a black kid from New York doing hitchhiking around the country, okay, back in the day? How did I end up in Berkeley? How did I become a street kid in Berkeley? You know, those experiences, and then I was being prepared. You know, those experiences, I never dealing with white people, okay? Wow. You know, when things were different in Berkeley then, and traveling and hitchhiking around and being picked up by people and things that happen, that I'm ready to look in the future for a piece on that. But it's that I got to know people, and now different experiences that I'm able, if it's through solo performing or an instrument, I'm able to express that, relate to it, because it's just amazing. I have to say this, my good friend Charlie Hinton, I met him at a harm reduction conference, and I wasn't playing horn at that time. I'd stopped. So I stopped playing for many, many years, more than 30 years. He remembered me and called me and asked me if I would come out to California and play with him, be a part of his play. Something beyond me. The same street that he lives on, 54 Germania, Charlie lives in that block. Well, I'm telling all his business now, and it just floored me, man. Sorry, Charlie, tell all your business. Hope you don't owe anybody any money, but but it just floored me. I said, man, I'm supposed to be here. Then I met the Marsh, and I used to sleep on the streets right around the Marsh. You know,
Wow.
so this is I don't know, I can't explain it. It's just beyond me, but it's something that I'm so grateful for. You know, and I thank all you guys, everybody, the Marsh, Charlie, all the people that I've encountered in life, period. It's just something I can't explain, but I'm happy about it.
What about you, Pearl? Inspirations or
Oh,
artistic inspirations
I would,
in your work?
yeah, I would say my family has influenced me a lot because it
Hmm.
seems like I do a lot of plays about my parents in particular. I was born down in Louisiana, and my parents went through segregation, and so their story of coming to California and integrating during the 60s and 70s, brought a lot. My mother wanted for her children to see how diverse and how wonderful people of different colors are, no matter what she went through. She felt that my mom and dad felt they had to get out of the South, and just the stories that meeting different families, that being a Southern family, poor, and you go to a white family's house and they see, like we eat possum and raccoons and all that stuff would be sent from the South. And it was just a hodgepodge of just stories, just wonderful events. And that's a lot. That really filled my plate in regards to experience. I like talking, I like storytelling, maybe
Hmm.
reading a little bit, but everything else I really focused on that. So most of my
Sure,
influence was that, yeah.
sure, sure.
And then I went to the marsh and it was like magic land. When I went there, I said, oh my God, there's people that can sit up there and you can talk and you can tell a story. And, and through the years, I took advantage of that. I took the classes with Mr. Ford. He's
Hmm.
and stuff. And then I have my directors too that stepped in, like Mark and Rebecca and Wayne, doing this project. How they gave me their input and what they thought, and like I said, it was like a gift, and it just keeps coming with artists. Yeah. So
Okay.
that's where I'm at.
Yeah, yeah. Mark, do you want to add to that?
Well, yeah, I just want to talk about one of my influences of this project here, and
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
this is Johnny Cash live from Folsom Prison. This is an album I heard. My dad had this tape, in the car when I was like, I don't know, 5, 7 years
Yeah.
old, and it burned something in there, something that a seed of something that has no doubt stayed with me and has a lot to do with my interest in this
Oh,
project.
wow.
Shout out to the man in black.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right. All right. Um, I have a question for Pearl and Freddie, and it's a bit personal.
Mhm.
And so I'd just like to say that if you'd care to dodge it or whatever, entirely up to you. But here's the thing. I've seen both your pieces, I think at least twice, and it's just crossed my mind every single time, uh, the vulnerability that you are both putting there on the line with these pieces, which is I think essential to so much solo performance, and it's a wonderful gift, and that makes me feel the generosity of what you're offering, of these stories, not just of the stories themselves, I think, but of your I think your attitude as storytellers, you're wanting to paint this picture for us, the audience. This is something you're giving to us, and it's not just for you; it's for the other people in the stories and this bigger picture. So there is for me a real sense of generosity about your work, and a compassion about it. Behind it is what I'm seeing. But the question I've asked myself, I think every single time I've seen both of you is there anger here? Um, and so maybe I'll frame the question of in terms of we this year have seen perhaps a movement that might bring change in our society, in the way that in our criminal justice system we've at least raised the question, and the need for change is so important. And what are your feelings? What are your emotions about that?
Well, or if Fred wants to go with it, you know.
No, go on, bro.
Okay.
Go on, bro.
All right. It goes way back.
Sure.
As African Americans dealing with the penal system. It's like the elephant in the room. You know, let's talk about prison and incarceration. If you check the data, I have seen personally, from my father to his father to his father before, is the fear of the police and the prison. I'm from Louisiana, and we have the famous Angola prison. And my brother went to that. That prison did something to my brother, and he never got, he was never himself again. And this prison system weighs on the Black community so deep. It destroys the family. Yes, I'm angry. When my son was in prison, I was angry. I was angry at him. I was angry at the parole officer. I was the DA, I call him dirty ass, you know, and stuff. I was everything. And as Black people, we have to always walk around with this on our back, you know. So 1 out of 10 Black men are dealing with the prison system, parole. I have the new generation with my son. You know what? It's just so much to talk about.
Sure.
It's just so much to talk about, but it's always been the elephant in the room in Black families.
Yeah.
Don't get arrested. What about the cops? My father didn't want to leave out at nighttime because he's seen lynchings. He's seen how some of the Klansmen that he knew were police officers from their voices. And so he had to bring that generation of his to his grandsons. And just the fear. It's just the elephant in the room. I think the more that we talk about it, the more we put it out there. But you see all the slave and the crime films and your prison films, and you see a lot of Black folks. Is it making it a difference? Is it an entertainment or is it learning? Mm-hmm. I talk too much, so I'm just rambling.
No, not at all. And yeah. You know, as again, I just feel that there is such an inherent generosity with what you are sharing through this work. And in a way, I feel a little, it's like, gosh, do I have a right to ask more? Sure. You know, reveal more. And I hope you will, you know, through continued work through this project.
Oh, sure. Thanks.
Fred, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah. There's anger, definitely anger. I could tap into not only anger but rage. You know, I could tap into that anytime. You know, I deal with things a different way. Let me see if I could put this together, man. I'm angry when I look at a couple of things. I may not be the most popular person when I finish saying this, okay? I'm looking at white people who conquered the world. Not just Africa, okay? Continents, Asia, South America, and on and on and on. So I'm not disliking people who treat me right, but I'm gonna call it the way it is. You know, to me, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed, man. And I asked this question: if it were me, as an African born in, but I happen to be born in America, I identify as an African born in America. And I conquered the world. How would I really feel about other people? How can we were outnumbered? White people outnumbered. And how did Africa allow this to happen? This is the conversation that I have with myself. Mm-hmm. How in the hell, how would I think deep down inside, the sons and the daughters of the original ones? None of us get away from this internalized oppression, none of us. Because this continues to run by itself. This whole system. So, I mean, anger, yeah, but okay. So I've been angry most of my life, ever since I can remember, when I didn't even understand what anger was. But what am I doing about it?
Yes.
That's it. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. What am I doing about it? And I've worked in nonprofits. I've, back in the day, first books I read, I mean, it was by Malcolm. And, you know, I still feel that the message to the grassroots, he could have written that this morning. You know, we've learned. I'm angry because we bought into the system. As Africans here, they were born in America. We learned to suffer peacefully, as Malcolm said. I could drive a Mercedes, I could live in a gated community. But when I look at the government's statistics, their data on the governmental institutions that dictate my life, healthcare, prisons, etc., we know the disparities. And I could go on and on and on. So there are times when I say, I want to say it. Somebody keeps whipping your ass, and the bully keeps beating you up and beating you up. You got to hit him back. You know? And I think that's one thing that we stopped doing. Now, I know that's not popular. I mean, I'm a 60s kid. You know, there's no more Panthers. There's no more, you know, we have internalized oppression. We kill each other. You know? So I have one-on-one conversations with people. I don't work for a nonprofit anymore. The government is not going to fund me to free myself. You know? So that's what I do. I talk with people. And I try not, I'll say this and be quiet. I was working, well, the Anti-Racist Alliance out of New Orleans. Somehow or another, I started working with them. They taught me so much years ago. One thing that hurt me to my heart, but was the truth. One of the best things that ever happened to me. They pulled me to the side and said, you know, Fred, with your passion, you have to learn how to harness that, man, because you could do more disorganizing than organizing. Mm-hmm. With my anger and everything. So, yeah, I'm angry, and I understand. I understand what internalized depression is, and I understand that if it's 400 or 500 years of oppression, it's going to take 500 years for that to even out. I understand that. Okay, so that way I have patience, because I had given up. I had said, man, this is what we need to do is end it all. With I didn't tell people this, that I was feeling this, is end it all, because there never will be equality in this world. Now I said, you know, let's try a little more, see what we can do. You know, because I've been down this road before. Been down this, and for a few years in the 60s, 2 or 3 years, we made some progress. And I'm happy to say that I was in the Bay Area at that particular time, in the East Bay especially. I could go on and on and on. Yes, I'm angry, but there's a way to deal with that. You know, but a fact is a fact. You know, I guess I'll close by saying this. I don't like Donald Trump or what he's doing. However, the dude is gangster, man. All right? And I believe people are progressives, okay? More people on the left, to be more gangster, man. Look, you didn't do this, you didn't take care of your business, and we love you, but you know, you're doing more disorganizing than you are organizing. People need to have those kind of conversations in a mindful manner.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll stop there.
No, I think that's beautifully said. More conversations in a mindful manner.
Mindful manner.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for asking. I know it's so much to unpeel with our lives and stuff. And when we were talking, because I know we got to wrap it up and stuff, but thanks for asking.
Oh, of course.
I echo that too. Thank you.
Yeah, we are so happy to have you here and look forward to our continued relationship with FIPP. So we do have to wrap. I'm going to just toss it over to Mark if you just have anything you'd like to say to play us out.
Just David, for the questions. Those were great questions, and thank you, Pearl and Fred, for sharing yourselves so fully, both in your performances and during this discussion. You guys are.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you to Marsh folks. Thank you, Pearl.
Thank you, Fred.
Thank you.
Can I say one thing? Then we
sure.
One thing. So I was looking at the comments, and I think someone asked, "Where was my son now?" And my son is no longer in prison, and we went through the 4 years of parole, and so that's another thing to talk about. But now he's working and enjoying life, and that's where my son is now. For the person that's interested in know what my son is doing. So he's working, he has a family now, and I have grandkids from that. And so it's
good.
Good.
That's awesome. And I apologize for missing that question in the chat. And thanks for picking up
on that,
Pearl,
no.
And thanks for answering. And I can't think of a better way to end on, but this is not the end. We will be seeing more of you in the future, and so thank you so much for sharing. Thank you in the audience for being part of this, and so I will wish you all good night.
Bye everybody. Bye.
Good night.
It happens, right? You're on your way to a very important meeting.
The right one, and finally, I turn to the place I always turn when I'm utterly lost and desperate.
Livelier. Can you do something a bit livelier? Of course I can.
We need to talk to you right now. We just need a momento. You can do your homework later.
I composed this song in prison.
Walking down the street, going to the theater. I mean, I had many breakfasts at Venus, and then I
read a little excerpt from it right now.
Excerpt. I love that word. Excerpt.
And she would call me like from the self-help home. She'd go, "They have their Sabbath on Fridays. Did you know that?"
Oh. And up.
Your ability to be online, pre-check how you look on camera, and also check for glasses. You see how much glare is on the...
Know that we are one.
It sounds like hell, if you know what I mean. But for some reason, we call it living the dream.
Okay, 069, and I don't want any of your smart aleck sex talk that I usually get when I get 069.